Welcome, everyone, to tonight's Girlfriend Book Club monthly discussion. I'm Shelley Emling, the executive editor of the Girlfriend newsletter. I'm also the moderator of the Girlfriend Book Club. So this month, May, the 125,000 or so of you book club members chose The Road to Tender Hearts as our book club pick. And as always, I'm so glad you did. And tonight we're going to be joined by the best-selling author Annie Hartnett of The Road to Tender Hearts. She's also the author of Unlikely Animals, and her debut book was Rabbit Cake. So I'm so excited to welcome you, Annie.
I'm so happy to be here. Hi, Shelley. Thanks for
Hi.
having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. I so enjoyed this book. There was so much to it, so much meat. A lot of books, I don't know. This one just there were so many rich characters in this book. It was just a delight. And first off,
Oh,
I'll just start with kind of a well, not a minor character, it's actually a central character, but I know you're a dog owner, but it seemed like the cat, Pancakes, was a real central, character in this book. And so I wondered how you came up with, this character Pancakes, and when you're like a dog person, I think.
I'm an animal person. I have a dog. I actually have two dogs. I just got a puppy. So I have my adult dog is at my feet right now, and the puppy's downstairs and locked in her crate for safety. um, but I've always loved all animals. If people have read my other books, they know that there's always lots of animals in them. I've never had a cat because my dad is allergic to cats.
Yeah.
But Pancakes, the cat, who is the first character you meet in the book, is based on a real cat who was a cat in a nursing home in Providence, Rhode Island, where I used to live. And he and his brother were adopted by this nursing home to, like, as therapy cats, kind of boost morale, keep people happy. And it was discovered that Oscar, not his brother, was spending time around people shortly before they died. And so they started sort of monitoring it. And then the doctor wrote a book about Oscar. There was newspaper articles about Oscar. Oscar died in 2022. And during his lifetime, he predicted over 100 deaths.
Wow.
So he died right about when I was starting a new project. And I was like, that's a cool concept. And so I wrote the first chapter, as you kind of see it, where you meet the cat. The cat's in a nursing home. This is a small spoiler, but it happens in the first chapter. The nursing home in my book does not embrace Oscar or does not embrace Pancakes. They kick him out because they don't want the Grim Reaper walking around the halls. So then Pancakes ends up meeting some of the other characters.
Isn't that a thing, though, where animals kind of know somebody's going to die? I've read that before. I mean, not just cats, but dogs as well.
Well, yeah, dogs can tell people their blood sugar's low. Like, animals have all sorts of
Yes.
senses that we don't have.
Yeah. So I also heard somewhere, well, everybody, of course, wants to know where you got the idea for the book, the road trip and everything. But I think I read that you took a cross country trip when you're in your 20s. Did that stick with you, and then that inspired this book, or is that not right?
I have taken a lot of cross-country road trips, so I did want to write a road trip book at some point. The one that you're talking about was probably the most formative. I took a cross-country road trip when I was in college with my friend and her other two friends. So I was close with one person in the car, but didn't know the other two people very well until, we got on the road. And the whole point of that road trip was just to have the one person return the car to San Francisco. So we drove from Massachusetts to San Francisco.
No.
And one place we stopped was Niagara Falls. And my friend is the descendant of Bobby Leach, who is the second person to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel and survive.
Yeah.
And then 3 months after he survived going over Niagara Falls in a barrel, he slipped on an orange peel and died of gangrene
Oh my
from that
goodness.
wound. So in terms of the theme of the book, there's a lot of death. The cat can predict death. I really wanted to have a little bit of Bobby Leach in there. because it's just, he survived something that is unsurvivable, going over Niagara Falls, and then he died in a very cartoonish way, slipping on a banana, not an orange peel, but banana peel. But so that road trip it was useful. I kept a diary from that road trip. And so many of those things that we saw on that road trip, because we were college students, we just camped across the country. We didn't even stay in cheap motels. We just, so that meant that we could stop anywhere. We had no agenda. So we stopped any random place that looked interesting, and we just saw the most random roadside attractions and the charm and weirdness of America. So I wanted to have that in the book. So that's part of it. But really the real inspiration of why I wanted to do the road trip, use some things from my real life, but I wanted to write about a man so the main character in the book is PJ Holiday, and he was inspired by somebody I met. So the premise of the book is PJ Holiday is reading the newspaper, and he comes across the obituary from his friend from high school. Michelle. And then Michelle Cobb, not Michelle, his friend from high school. Then he comes across the obituary from his friend from high school, and then he realizes that if that man is dead, then the woman that man married is single again. So that's Michelle Cobb. So he decides to drive cross country to win her back. And so I was inspired from him because I knew a man who told me that he was so sensitive that his wife had to cut up the newspaper every morning and remove things that would upset him about children and animals. So I wanted to write about an older man who was reading the obituaries, but couldn't read about children or animals, so could only read parts of the newspaper. So that's really where the original idea came from.
So that's actually true. There is somebody who did not want to read those bad bits of the paper.
That is true. Yes.
So I have to say, one of my favorite parts of this book was the relationship between PJ and his ex-wife, Ivy, and her fiance, Fred, his best friend. I mean, were you inspired by anybody with those relationships? Because that's unusual to have somebody so close to and fond of their ex-wife, and then bring in the fiance as well, Fred. I just thought that I loved reading about those bits of the book.
Yeah, that's not inspired by anybody really, other than my parents are still together. My parents have been together since they were 18.
Oh my gosh.
But I don't consider them soulmates. They're so different.
Yeah.
They're really my mom is a morning person. My dad's a night owl. She's more introverted, wants to play Scrabble. He wants to be out partying with people until late. So they're just so different. So I can imagine a world in which they are no longer married, but they are so codependent on each other. I couldn't imagine a world where they would not have a relationship. So it's a little bit my little joke, because my mom is a big time bird watcher. My dad actually does more than any other of her hobbies. He supports bird watching. He will go owling with her, and go look for, a specific type of eider down Cape Cod. But anyway, so in the book, the PJ's ex-wife has moved down the street, and she has married a bird watcher. Right. So that's kind of my little joke at my parents.
Did your parents read this before it was published?
Before it was published, my mom did. My mom read it before it was published. She was one of the first people that read it once I had an early copy.
Right.
And her reviews are always so harsh.
She's really?
Yeah. She's not, I don't know. She's not my biggest, she's my biggest fan in some ways, but she's not my biggest fan. She's very critical. Yeah. And then my dad doesn't read at all. And my dad is really named PJ Hartnett. And so my PJ Holiday, PJ Hartnett, he has not, as long as I've known him, he's read 3 books, and I wrote them all. So they are my 3 books. And so he will always say, I don't know what else is out there, but like, I don't know why this isn't winning all the prizes. And I'm like, because you don't know what else is out there. It's like you have the sample size. But yeah, so he read it after it was out. And
So
he'll like,
did he think it was spot on? Did he say like, "Oh, that's a great character. I love PJ," or did he say, "No, I don't think that works"?
He doesn't see how it's him. He thinks that they're different people. He's heard me talk a lot about how they're similar. But because he comes to all my events that he can come to, I do a lot of events. So yeah, I will be doing a lot of events all over the country all the way until August. So if you look at my website, if you want to come to see me in real life. So my dad comes especially to the New England events. And so I get to tell people how PJ Hartnett and PJ Holiday are similar. And they're both just like really gregarious people. Very like never met a stranger. They physically look alike, although my uncle looks more like he has the bigger beard. And then PJ Holiday is a lottery winner. My dad is not a lottery winner, but he is very generous with money, and he also does play the lottery. He plays the Massachusetts Powerball when it gets, really big. Right. And he'll call me and he'll say, "It's for $600 million. I need to talk through how we're going to spend this money and who's going to get what." And I'm like, "Dad, you're not going to win. I don't want to spend my time talking about who's going to get which money." So,
well, PJ Holiday, won some money. So
yeah, PJ Holiday has the money, so he can give it out.
Yeah. So I always ask authors this: was there a scene or a character that was more challenging to write than the others? I mean, was it maybe Luna or Ollie, or I don't know. Was there a part of it that was a little bit more challenging than the others?
The kids are always easy to write. I have kids and animals in all of my books. So I love writing kid dialogue. It's just, it's easy for me. It's really fun. I can just always imagine, the weird thing that children are going to say that make things like a little uncomfortable. And so I just love writing kids. I love writing siblings, especially. I have 2 brothers, and I just love how mean they can be to each other. But you understand that there's an undercurrent of love. Like there's so many things I would say to my brothers that I would never say to a friend, at risk of like ending the friendship. But with siblings, you just have a really different relationship. And so, but the hardest character is always to write in my history of writing is people in their 20s. So Sophie, Sophie is PJ's daughter, who's like semi-estranged, and she people in their 20s are just difficult to write because people in their 20s are still figuring out who they are. There's still so many things that they might change about themselves. As we get older, there's certain things that we settle into, decide about ourselves, becomes a real, my mom is a bird watcher. She's, but is that just a hobby in your 20s that you're going to let go of, or it becomes something that is really cemented into your personality?
So did you know when you started this book, again, I said it's so rich. I almost think it's like 3 books into one in some way. There's so much going on, and it keeps your interest just every single page. But did you know at the beginning of it, I don't know what your writing process is like, but did you know they're going to take a road trip to Arizona and stop on the way in Texas to see if that, Luna has her biological father? I mean, did you have that all plotted out at the start, or did you kind of start with Pancakes and the character, but then you kind of made it up a little bit as you were going along, or what?
So it's really funny to me that you say that it seems like 3 books at once, because it was 3 books in the beginning. Not pretty early on, it was 3 books. So I was writing 3 books. So the first 3 chapters, the Pancakes chapter, the chapter where you meet PJ and you see the newspaper situation, and then and then you meet the kids in chapter 3, and those were all sort of separate ideas but I didn't think like I never thought anyone would let me get away with like a talking cat book. I was just like, I'll be laughed out at bookstores. So I didn't, it was just kind of for me to write. And then I really liked the PJ section, but then I wrote the third chapter 3, and I was like, oh, this has some real energy, but it was so dark. Like chapter 3 is my really dark chapter. And I didn't really know what to do with that. And then I realized, oh, if I use this consistent voice and I put the cat in the beginning, I can really get away with, because I'm always want to get away with humor.
Right.
I'm trying to make people laugh. But I can get away with some real darkness with the cat, because the cat just has a different relationship and understanding with death. So I put the cat, it just like all clicked one day. And so it became one book. I realized everyone could get in the car, and then it would be a road trip for all of them. But in terms of a road trip book, they don't get on the road until like page 100.
Right.
But part of the fun for me is the setup of how they all meet. Like I really enjoyed writing the first third of the book. And then after that, it went pretty fast. I knew I was going to have them end up in Arizona. Because for a couple reasons. Some of them is, as I was preparing to write a road trip book, I read a lot of other road trip books, so there are a lot of good ones. They all go to California for obvious reasons. It's like it's the other ocean. And I did not want them to go to California, even though there is kind of like, will they go to California at one point? And then I wanted it to be a retirement home. It was always called Tender Hearts Retirement Home. The book was always called The Road to Tender Hearts, from very, very early on. And then I wanted it to be a retirement home in Arizona, because when I was in my 20s, not different road trip, but I took a road trip where I lived in Southern California to go skydiving with a bunch of friends, like 15 friends that I worked with. And none of us had any money. So one of the guys that we worked with, his grandmother lived in a retirement community, in a little condo. And so 15, 20-year-olds crashed her little condo, slept on the floor, slept on beach chairs outside. And it was in retro, like I think I was 22. I was really young. I didn't understand at the time, like how that was a funny concept. Like I thought we were just like, sleeping because his grandmother wasn't there either. She was like, had the key under the mat. And so it was just a really good, like visual memory for me. So I knew I wanted them to end up in Arizona because of that, even though that's not really what happens in the book. But
did you go skydiving? I just have to ask.
I did go skydiving. Yeah. So again, I was 22. I would never do it now. Yeah. It was unbelievably fun. It was so fun, but I'm very glad that I did it before my brain was fully developed. And
so I have to ask, has the reception to the book, it's been so overwhelming. Like I said, when the book club members choose a book, it's over like a 3 or 4 day process. So does the reception to the book surprise you at all, or delight you? Are your family members surprised by how popular the book is?
I think, my family members are off. I shouldn't have said that my mom's not a big supporter, but she is critical. So I think that's fair to say. They're excited. I think they don't have any idea that, that anything is any different for me than it was before. Right. But it is really, really fun to hear from so many people that the book made them laugh, that it made them feel hopeful. Yeah. That that they like which lines they laughed at. I always love to hear that. And then they find my other books too, which I'm happy about. So I did hope that this book would find readers. I did think it was my best book. I did think it was my funniest book. So it is rewarding that, people agree. Yeah, it's been great. It's been a great year to hear, that this book is really, people are connecting with it and the characters.
So just a couple more questions. I read your author's note, as I always read all author's note, and yours was probably one of the best I've ever read. So you started it with talking about thanking, I think it was a rental house, right? It wasn't a house you bought. It was a rental
No.
house. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Why you were thanking that rental house at the beginning of your acknowledgments at the end of the book?
Yeah. So the book, it's a book about being chased by death, or, every bad thing that can happen to a family is how I describe it. And that's because right before I started writing the book, every bad thing happened to me that can happen in a house. So we lived in Providence for 4 happy years, and then we lived there for 1 crazy year. We moved to the other side of town right before the pandemic started. Moved into a house that was a rental house. Before that, we'd been living in an apartment.
Yeah.
And we moved into this house, and from then, the day we moved in, our neighbor stabbed her sister.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's where we started. And from then on, it was like we were going to take care of the lawn to get money taken off the rent because our landlord was in California. It was 100% poison ivy. The yard was covered in poison ivy. And then we had 2 basement floods. We had 2 gas leaks. We had black mold on the walls. We had lead in the water. We had rats who got in our car and caused $2,400 in damage. The rat guy came to take care of the rats and put these poison boxes around the yard in Providence and said, "Oh, I see you have a small child learning to walk. Make sure she doesn't run at any of the rats because they will charge her right back." And it was so threatening. And then he said, the reason the rats are coming to the yard, I asked him what else you could do than rat poison. I do not like rat poison. It wasn't my house. It wasn't my choice. But he said, you can cut this tree down. They're coming because the white mulberry tree. So we called this tree guy to cut the tree down. He said, okay, I cut this tree down, but that tree and that tree and that tree are going to fall on your house. 3 days later, a tree did fall, not on the house, but in the neighbor's yard. And then a teenager crashed his car at the base of our driveway and died in the middle of the night.
Oh my gosh.
And it was thing after thing after thing. Meanwhile, the pandemic is going on. And I have a new child who's, she's 14 months when this is all happening. So I decided to move. So I went to Zillow to find a house that was somewhere else, but that my husband could still work in Providence. So I had this radius of how far could we go that's not here? There was nothing to rent in the actual city. So I found this house in a town I'd never heard of before. I'm from Massachusetts originally, but I'd never heard of this town called Lakeville, Massachusetts. So we moved to Lakeville, rented this house in Lakeville, and the house I'm in right now. And I was like, oh, I'm safe here. I finally felt I could relax after we stayed there for 14 months. We extended our lease, but then we broke our lease in the second year. So, but then I realized, wait, I shouldn't relax because something bad, maybe it's not the house that's cursed. Maybe it's my life that's cursed, and I should continue to keep watch. So I couldn't really relax, but then I just sort of was okay, what I need is to write another book so I can afford the house we moved to because it was more expensive. And also so that I can put all my anxiety somewhere. And so, but then I wanted to write about that anxiety of raising children, but then to make it as funny as possible. So that was really where the book came from. It's about a lot of different things, but that emotional core is about, as it says in the beginning of the first chapter, how can anyone stand to raise children in a world where doom and disaster lurk around every corner? So that was my question for myself. How can I stand it knowing that I brought someone into the world, which means someday she'll die? And how do I protect her? How do I protect myself? How do I protect everyone in my family? Which is stuff I struggle with all the time. Just anxiety about how to protect people.
So I'm curious before I get to the last questions. Did you follow up? Do you know if the renters after you in that original house, did they also have bad luck, or do you have any idea? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I do know. So I got a message from her, and the landlord, to his credit, like he was trying. He was in California. He had just bought the house, and so he wasn't, trying to be abusive or anything.
Right.
He was trying to do everything he could. So after we left, he made more changes. He got a new roof, he got a French drain, like a bunch of things had improved by the time the next renters moved in. They moved in. I heard from her on Instagram because people kept sending me books to my house or my old house, and she sent me an Instagram message, and she said, "Hi, I live in your old house. I have some of your books. I figured out through looking at your Instagram that I went to high school with your brother's wife." Oh. And then she said, "And I have a weird question for you. Did you ever have any paranormal experiences in this house?"
Oh my gosh.
I
Wow.
was like, wow. So she lived there for we became Instagram friends, and she stayed there for over a year too, and had a baby of her own in that house. And I was like, make sure you filter your water.
Oh my gosh. Watch the rats. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really great story. So is there any chance that this book is going to be made into a TV series or a movie? Any chat about that?
I hope so. There's been a bunch of interest recently. It has been, as you said, like the book has really found its people this year. Yeah. It's been a great word of mouth book. Like, so everyone who's told other people to read it, it really it's made its success through word of mouth. So, if there is a TV show or a movie, it's because of people talking about it. So I think, my first book was sold as a movie and never got made. So I know that it doesn't necessarily mean it will happen, but I am hopeful that we'll see PJ on screen someday.
It just seems like it would lend itself to a movie or TV series for sure. Yeah.
I think it would be good. I think it would.
So 2 more questions. One is, are there any authors that you can recommend to the rest of us, or a book that you've loved recently in the past year that you could recommend to the book club members, something that's inspired you that you've really enjoyed?
I loved this book, Lost Lambs, by, I think her name is Madeline Cash. It is Looney Tunes in the best possible way. So if you liked Tender Hearts, you will probably like that, although I think it's a little bit like a little spikier than mine. Not maybe quite as heartwarming at parts, although I just loved it. She's really young. She's like 29 years old, I think. She's really, really talented, and that book is so kooky and really fun and well written, and the characters are incredible. I think that has already been optioned for a movie. So that one came out fairly recently, and I read it, and I just loved it. It was so good.
Great.
Yeah. So everyone should read that and let me know what you think about it.
And so finally, I just always ask everybody, the girlfriend is all about female friendship and how important friends are as you grow older. What do you like to do with your friends when you're not reading and writing, and hanging out with your family? What do you love to do with your girlfriends?
We've been going on where everyone's turning 40 this year. So it's been a year of going on trips. A lot of my closest friends don't live that close to me. I have some really good friends here, but my college friends, making sure I see them. So I just went to Florida with one of them and her kids for spring break. Oh, nice. And then we went to Mexico City for our friend who's now in remission from cancer. And so we had to really go big for her birthday. So just going on trips and making efforts to be friends with people that you've known for a long time.
Oh, that's great. I love it. All right. So everybody watching has probably read it, but if you haven't, The Road to Tender Hearts is a must read. Recommend it to your friends. Annie Hartnett, it's so nice to meet you and have you here with us. I just want to remind everybody to stay on the book club page, because I'll be posting conversation starters tonight so you can talk about the book amongst yourselves. And I just want to remind everybody that on June 16th, Kate Quinn, The author is joining us because our June pick is The Astral Library. I don't know if you've read that one yet, Annie, but I haven't read it either. But Kate Quinn will be joining us in June. So I look forward to that. So thank you, Annie. Have a great evening, and I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Bye, everybody.